how do you balance reconciling colleagues who are a little bit slow to get with the program, for want of a better word, and are passively or even actively resisting some of the initiatives that you're trying to put in place to level the playing field for your Black colleagues? Now, here I'm talking about people who may feel resentful about the attention that you are giving this issue, who feel like they are being made to feel guilty for being white, who feel like that this is an attack on them and it's not their fault that racism is a thing, or that they feel like the intensity of what you're doing, if you are doing a lot, I know this is not applicable for every company, but almost makes them question whether or not there's a place for them now, because all of a sudden you've changed the microscope lens to ensure that they've been able to bask in the glory of the way that you've done things because it's benefited them, and all of a sudden in their mind you're taking some of that sunlight and redistributing it to Black colleagues doing things that actually is never going to benefit them. Now, there is no easy way to answer this, but I think I just want to give a perspective that I have. And, you know, if you have a different view or different advice, please share this, because I know this has come up in pretty much every single organisation I have ever spoken to. Trust and believe, and I've spoken to many. What I talk about kind of follows a pattern, so I thought, you know what, let me do a video on this. Here's my thing. You know that saying, right? Energy flows where attention goes. So if you are resolute because you've made an informed and conscious decision that these are the steps that you're now ready to take to, you know, become anti-racist, to think about ensuring that your culture is just, you know, racially just, then focus your energy there, right? So carry on with the initiative. Don't second guess or doubt what it is that you're trying to do because you're worried about how it's going to be perceived by your colleagues who are anti-equity or anti the focus on Black people, or who are not anti-equality, but they don't want to do anything differently to be able to get there, right? Because if you pay a disproportionate amount of time to those colleagues over here, you're missing a massive opportunity to empower, to enable, to keep mobilizing the colleagues over here who want to be part of the solution, who are ready to be active allies, who are ready to speak truth to power, who are ready to leverage their power and share their influence, because you're so conscious about this small group over here who don't want to get with the program. So if you shift your focus and always keep thinking about the overarching vision of the organisation that you want to build and the culture that you're trying to evolve to, I'm not saying you're going to get there overnight, and it is going to take work, and this is going to take work over years, not months or over a financial year, right? You want to put your energy there because you want to make it so irresistible and so sticky what you're trying to do, because remember, you are taking steps that organisations are still debating or not, whether they even want to have the conversation, never mind doing something. So you are already starting to be a magnet for colleagues, for suppliers, for customers, if you choose to share what you're doing, who want to ensure they're aligned with organisations who share their value, because this is also important to them. You're also not only showing your Black colleagues that this is important enough for you to put some specific time and energy into addressing this. What you're saying is, as a business, we are disrupting this notion of majority rules, meaning that providing it works for the homogenous majority, we're all right with that. And what you're saying is, we are now going to start factoring in how lived experiences and how the different barriers that affect minoritized groups, whether it's because of race, whether it's because of sexual identification, orientation, disability, any of those things. And we're okay with prioritizing where we see fit, because when we pull all of that together, what we're saying is we pride ourselves about being a business that values difference in every context. You know, we value diversity in all of its forms, not just diversity of thought, because, you know, like that sounds good and it's a bit safer, isn't it, than talk when what you really mean. That we're keen to diversify our business because that's important and we've nailed that in our values, you know, and it's part of our vision. So if you put your energy on the forward trajectory of where you're trying to go, so keep innovating, keep experimenting, you know, keep trying to find ways to empower your colleagues and give them knowledge and give them the tools to be able to move from conversation to mobilize to action, then that becomes your new normal. Do you know what I mean? That becomes the definition of your base standard, and it becomes harder for individuals who still want to be part of your company but who are keeping themselves divorced from this. That becomes harder and harder and harder. So fundamentally, they have to make a decision whether or not your organisation in its new iteration is a place for them, or whether or not they should leave. And rather, I think, than you spending so much time talking, debating and worrying about this group over here, I would say focus on where you're heading. Enable, empower, keep those feedback loops going, keep telling people why you're doing what you're doing, because this is the other bit that's often missed out. Keep iterating what sustainability means to you, what an impact business means to you. Always keep telling that narrative, keep sharing updates, you know, keep allowing people and bringing people in and bringing people close and amplifying different voices, different experiences, bringing outsiders if you have to, because that you have to be the culture that you want to see. You can't do that if you're always spending your time and energy focused on the few people, no matter how senior they are, who don't get it. Now, the brave and bold leaders are the ones that make it very clear, that says, you know, if you want to be part of this culture, this organisation that I'm building, these are some of the parameters. So if you don't, you're more than welcome to leave. We've seen the reverse of that with organisations or founders who don't want to engage in issues of kind of social justice and think about how they can be part of the solution. They want to completely divorce that. So my argument is, if they've got no shame, basically saying you can come to work for us providing you don't talk about how your lived experience is impacting on your experience in our workplace, that you don't talk about some of society's most challenging issues and how we can come together and be part of the solution, that you only talk about things directly connected to the products or services that we you know sell, that we only engage in things where we think there's a direct financial payoff, or that we feel is easy or comfortable for us to engage with. Those businesses are out there, and we hear more and more that that's the stance that they're taking. So even when you say it out loud, I mean, you kind of know which business that you want to be part of, but equally, in the same way those founders can decide that's the culture that they want, a conditional culture of inclusion, a conditional culture that accepts difference, you know, that amplifies marginalised voices, that thinks about how they can make an impact. It's all conditional, providing they can convert it into pounds, shillings and pence, versus you saying, actually, that's not the business I want. This is the business I want, and I'm going to hold tight to that. And I think it makes it easier for you to do that, providing you've done the foundational introspection work and made a conscious decision, not a knee-jerk decision, that says, not if, but when we begin our journey, or as we continue our journey, you know, to ensure that we're becoming anti-racist, which means we are actively looking at ways to dismantle racism and structural barriers within our organisation. And we're also advancing racial equity. So we're spending time thinking about how we can level the playing field, not to help our black colleagues, because remember, they're not broken and they don't need fixing, but because we recognise that our culture serves a certain part of our workforce, but not all, you know. Then when you've gone, right, I recognise that that journey is going to be challenging. I recognise that not everybody is going to be wanting to be part of that, but it doesn't matter, because this is where we're going, because I've got this bold vision you know, and I'm ready to start being and leading that change. And all I can do is hope I make it as sexy as hell for the detractors to have no choice but to be curious. And I'm going to keep finding ways to make it irresistible for them not to be part of this direction that we're going. But I'm also not going to spend my time pandering to those who want to put a spanner in the works just because they feel uncomfortable. Or even, let's call a spade, they might be harboring racist views, you know. But as I said at the beginning, and it's really apt in this circumstance, you know, energy flows where attention goes, and this is no different.